Welcome back. You here with Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about a few different items. Now, just briefly, I made updates to the digital version of World Enemy, mainly stylistic, but also incorporating Operation Cast Thy Bread and some more data on marks. I'll be tackling the paperback shortly, although it's tricky. If you use the Amazon Kindle publishing platform, which is utter garbage and has gotten progressively worse the last several years, it will ruin your formatting. If you go with a trusty PDF or a Word document, it will ruin your formatting. And so you have to keep respawning, attempting to get it correct. But when that's completed, I'll be full speed ahead towards Germany. And when that one has been released, you guys will finally at long last be rid of Goldberg. So hip hip hooray. Now let's continue with the video. Channel 4 wanted to publish a morality tale of sorts regarding the risks inherent to AI. And so their twist in an M. Light Shyamalan fashion was to have the anchor doing the presentation by the end revealed to be the byproduct of artificial intelligence. But for some reason, this scam reporter is depicted as a Pooja. What did Channel 4 mean by that? It made me think, on a general basis, the crazy girl from earlier this year, she's been asking Goldberg to smash again, although she had the caveat, you must have my heart before you get my ass. And then matched with this attractive golden tone Pooja on Bumble. Nice girl, although you notice with South and East Asians, they're effectively bean counters. It's always about the bottom dollar. That's how they look at life. Well, the truth be told, these gals, in my experience, are looking for Mr. Right. They want a fellow they can introduce to their parents, they can take to social gatherings, to yuck it up with their friends, wedding dates, you go out together and take selfies, bonding rituals. But if I'm honest, that's not me, and it's probably never gonna be. I'm not a socially acceptable BF. I don't work the right schedule. I don't have the appropriate opinions. And so part of me feels guilty, like if I continue and I smash them and they get emotionally attached, but I'm not on the same page. Recently, Emma Watson's characterization of social pressures on women to get married as violence got a lot of the conservatives rage pilling. And in this case, Matt Walsh is going, is she just mad she's single and doesn't have kids? Yeah, you're right. Instead, she should get a guy like this. You can see he's got the arm tattoo, rolled up sleeves, because he works with his hands for a living, like he encourages young men to do. He's got the beard, the hair to the one side. I mean, she's really missing out. Granted, it's the normal story. Emma Watson has been famous and wealthy since she was like, what, 10 or 11 years old? So in a sense, she's peaked. She has a net worth of 85 million. Her last major film was Beauty and the Beast, and then she did that Circle, which had an interesting concept, but by the end it was very subversive. They were trying to tell you it's okay to have all this surveillance as long as you use it responsibly. But there is nothing preventing her from getting married if she wanted to, and I'm sure she's dated decent looking guys. Although it would be hard for her to come across a fellow with more money. And as such, she might just play the field or remain single, be a empowered woman. It's sort of, you see DiCaprio, I mean, I don't think he has any known offspring. He just continuously runs through them. I could see how you'd be very bored with existence. I mean, she might chase an Academy Award, but what else is she going to go for? Having kids. The question is, do you want these gals having kids? You see how many celebrities turn them into cross-dressers, social experiments. I guess the tragedy is that with all the money she possesses, if she doesn't reproduce biologically, she'll probably just send it to Africa for an AIDS program, and that would upset the right-wingers even more. The problem, I think, fundamentally is that a lot of right-wing people, they assume that the world is simplistic. Like you either have kids or you're a degenerate. And they don't understand that maybe the simple life of having a family is good for some people, but for others, it just may not pan out that way. And it might be a mistake for them to go that direction. And let's consider a gal who did it right, so to speak. She didn't waste her time, even though she was a Hollywood type worth a decent amount of money. Kristen Bell.
She was
Yeah.
very sexually active.
And
And she wishes she was even more sexually active.
When a woman says this, she's either already cheating on the guy or she's planning to. Dax Shepard could be called a low tier normie or even an oofy doofy. I mean, he's tall, but his face is a little bit jacked up. Nonetheless, he got the gorgeous girl. And Kristen Bell is the type of woman who would be deified by ethnics or wignats just because of her complexion, but she's relatively basic. Here she is, married to the guy for a decent amount of time. He's 50. I believe she's 45. So she's older than Emma Watson. She has kids, but she still thinks she should have slept around more. And make no mistake, she will do so. Remember, whenever these wife guys try to clown on you, many of them are living this nightmare, but they deny it. They have to look the other way as their wife disrespects them, as she probably carries on with affairs, because if they do anything indicating discomfort or disapproval, they're going to be in the insecure column, and she'll get in the girl chat with a trans Don Cheadle, and it'll be like, okay, yeah, you time to move on because he's creating a problem. I would be very surprised if they remain married. And I suspect she's already basically on an open basis with this relationship. I could be wrong. Now, to understand how deep the rot goes with poor little Dax, take a look at this. Why Dax Shepard is into wife's hot on-screen kiss with Adam Brody. This shows you, I mean, why would you accept such terms? In fact, there was some event, maybe it was a late night show or award ceremony in the last year or two, where they just played a montage of her kissing all these different men throughout her Hollywood career. And once more, the husband's supposed to be yucking it up. Oh, yeah, it's my girl. She's so, she's a wild one. I mean, why would you sign up for this? Are you so desperate to not be alone? So sure, if you get a religious woman, you get a woman who's physically intact, you have a better shot. I'm not raining on your parade. Just keep in mind, the ones that have never been with another man at times will become very resentful because they feel like they missed out on their 20s, that they should have been on the carousel and they didn't get the chance. And if you want to put this to the test, I don't advise you doing so. Talk to your dad, assuming he's still around, your parents weren't divorced. Ask him, what was it like when he was dating your mom? Was she one of those, yeah, I had my fun? Was she loyal to him? Did she cheat on him and he took her back? In the early stages of their marriage, was she actually faithful? Because you would be shocked, even amongst conservative right-wing people, how many times the guy is just nodding and smiling, cute and cuddly, but he knows that his wife is not actually honoring the arrangement. And they, because they can't accept that truth, usually these folks, they go online, oh yeah, you guys are losers, you're too negative. This one was also quite entertaining. 43 years old, new GF, new yacht, no kids, crypto millionaire. Does it get any better than this? And I should point out that many of the, oh, by the way, did you know I'm high IQ accounts on Twitter, the right-wingers, trad types, fell for this hook, line, and sinker. They didn't even stop to consider the guy might be doing a meme. I mean, he's literally wearing a Labubu doll. Okay, look at his expression. And there was some going, he thinks this is a flex. The real flex is telling bedtime stories to your kids. Yeah, it's great. You reproduce, you have a family, fantastic. But as I mentioned before, there are some people that probably shouldn't be reproducing, right? And you just constantly browbeating increases the likelihood you're going to have these extremely dysgenic couplings of people desperate because they've just got to do what the internet's telling them or what the tradition is telling them. But this girl, more to the point, she started trying to backpedal and claimed he manipulated her. She got embarrassed. She was paid $400 to act in some skits. What kind of skits? Clapping skits? I had to confirm what skits I was comfortable with. I didn't know the pic was being posted. I didn't know that the caption. What do you expect nowadays? He's an influencer, honey. But this is their normal gambit. Whenever they get embarrassed, which is really that she probably didn't like people clowning her for being with this guy because they were assuming that she was being bent over. And, it's a great irony. Now, what did I tell you? They are going to be on sale more now than ever, and you're going to see it because they're losing their jobs. They don't have a means of making GDP, so they're going to be doing a lot more P for P. And who knows? I don't know if she actually did anything with this Nick guy, but I wouldn't put it past her. And you saw a bunch of the simps, a bunch of the tradcons rushing to her defense because this is what they love doing. Oh, this girl broke some guy's heart. You know, she needs to be a wife. Guys, just you got to stop trying to idealize these people. They're, like I said, it's retail market. She doesn't feel bad. What's the first thing she did? She tried to launch her own career as an influencer and she was pushing scam coins. And this is a relatively attractive woman for sale. We're not talking about, like, wow, she's like a two. It's fairly appealing. Another one that was kind of entertaining. We've got the passport bro, expat goes to Japan, marries one of the women, but he's complaining about racism, and they're saying, "You're taking our women." It's actually interesting because there was some channel, I forget the name, it was some brother in Japan. He claimed that the original Japanese were black, and blacks actually respect Japanese culture, unlike these cream cheesers. I mean, I don't want to go down that path, but you know, these guys will say, "Oh, Japan must preserve its culture, but that includes me too." And someone else shared, it's one of those accounts, and they are angry hoppas, and the conservatives were responding, "Oh, you need to lift your weights and have a positive mindset." Like they don't want to face the facts about their own creation and what that means to the world. Speaking of which, although I guess Lauren Chen was the opposite combination, she's going after Usury. Talk about a typical scam artist. This woman started as Mrs. Classical Liberal Libertarian, saying that she was interested in Indian men, and now she's trying to be the Wignat queen. So she says usury is a sin. The Bible is explicitly clear on this. Muslim cells structure their banking and financial systems specifically to avoid it. Why can't Christians? This is in response to the Pope saying usury corrupts the human heart and enslaves the poor. Okay, so number one, Muslim societies still run on usury. They have different labels for it, or they will try to export to certain intermediaries, to non Muslims, which, by the way, was exactly what these base Christian rulers and people in the church did in Europe. They said certain groups, primarily Carebears, but also certain sects of Christians, were allowed to take part in this because they saw how useful it was. And by transferring it to another tribe, their followers, i.e., Christians, would not be committing sins. But they can still benefit from it, and they absolutely will. Indeed, the problem with this mindset, when you say be against usury, and bear to understanding that these right-wingers will never research the history of banking, they will not educate themselves on anything because they don't care. It's just an emotional term. It's a scapegoat that they can get angry about. They can blame for why the world's going bad, but they have no interest in how it truly functions. Because usury, the extension of credit, was the basis for, oh, are you basking in the glories of European civilization? Well, it was built with loans. I hate to tell you this. Well, we can just be libertarians. Yeah, and you would have been living under probably Asian conquerors or Muslim cells because you're not going to have money to raise armies, to pay mercenaries, to build castles. And yes, I hate to tell people this, but you know that most of these campaigns to expand Christendom, or indeed to restore it against the heathens, the infidels, the Muslim cells, were funded on the back of Carebear usury. Yeah, that's one thing these people don't like mentioning. All these high IQ trads, they'll glaze over that. Well, they do a lot of glazing, to be fair. It's so embarrassing. They are entirely ignorant of what has made the world great, what allowed it to actually expand, because they're obsessed with this little morality tale. Yeah, but Goldberg, when the Spaniards expelled the Care Bears, they immediately experienced a golden age. So, in terms of expansion, discovery, do you know what group was central to the development of maps? Do you know what group, in many cases, funded the expeditions and were central leaders in some of the expeditions? On top of that, did this expulsion remove the conversos, the new Christians, the ones who were still running the economic system like their forefathers, who were accused of secretly practicing the traditional faith behind closed doors? Apparently not. And we have evidence in the fact that almost in tandem with the Golden Age, you see the Inquisition, which was focused on trying to root out supposedly insincere Christians. Occasionally, some Muslims were also removed from the economic system, merchants, and at times, even Protestants. Well, about 100 years on from these shifts, you get 1588 with Sir Francis Drake, which is devastating to at least part of the Spanish Armada. And in the 1600s, that's when their decline seriously picks up. They have a massive empire, they have financial issues, inflation, supply chain. You're always dealing with potential conflict. They hobble along, but when they conclusively fall in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it's to the benefit of the Rothschild-controlled United States. So it just makes you wonder, like, was it to their benefit, or did it actually become the siren song of their doom? I'll let people debate. When you take it a step further, what's your alternative? Well, we can just outlaw GDP growth. We can have the gold standard. Now, the gold standard isn't all bad, but once more, these people don't even look at history. The gold standard was for a long time seen to be a tool of the elites. It was a globalist model, and if a country didn't have a lot of precious metal, they would get screwed over because they wouldn't be allowed to float their currencies when things got bad. Or they'll appeal to simple interest, no compounding. All right, let's consider that for a second. I'm going to loan you $100,000 for 10 years, but can I charge you 50% simple interest? Excuse me. No, because that's usury. But I can't compound the interest. So let's say I charge you 5%. I'm getting killed in inflation throughout that period because even if you have a sound money system, there will still be a level of inflation. So you will not make a profit while taking incredible risk. So how do you manage that? Compound interest is a way you make money, but it's also a means of checking that because if the person skips town, disappears with the money, what do? You're left with a bag and you're screwed. And of course, back in the day, there was no guarantee that the government's going to bail you out. So you have to understand that too. It was fraught with a lot more peril. Well, then one of these will come back. St. Aquinas said you can have penalties and fines and fees. Well, historically, those were just code words for charging more interest. Not to mention, let's take it to another level. It will just be a Christian governments that give all loans, no private banking because it's corrupt and usurious. All right, so what happens if you don't repay the government? They can't fine you if you don't have money, so are they going to just chuck you in the dungeon, you eat gruel, and then you have like malnutrition problems and die? Or they put you to the sword? I guess that's better than debt slavery. But what happened a few years ago when that nice Catholic gentleman said he wanted to eradicate the loans, the interest slavery held by so many young Americans, the ones who are constantly being browbeaten that they're not having keys? What happened? Well, the Christian conservatives went out and, oh, they have to pay it back, file lawsuits. And I suspect that if you actually had a model wherein you went to this simple interest or you banned usury, a lot of these Christian types would end up realizing it's not that good for them and they would want to go back to the old one. It's so easy to complain about stuff when you never would have any influence over monetary policy, when you never have actually been in a position where you've had to take serious risk. Like it or not, the usury-based system has allowed people to accrue property. It's helped a lot of business owners because you can buy things in advance. You make an investment towards the expansion of your company. It's not perfect. I would say the most effective model would be to make it much harder for people who are irresponsible, who don't have much income to attain credit, period. Like they used to not give them credit cards. Now, the downside is some would say, oh, it's equity problem. Oh, it's inequality. The rich are getting richer. Yeah, because if you know how to use debt, you will get wealthy. If you are low IQ and irresponsible, you won't. But to be fair, a lot of these people would probably prefer to be living in like some hovel, as long as their doctrine is the highest form of authority, they would not really care. So they love to talk about the greatness of European civilization, but oh yeah, but the cost of that, we don't want it. So we'll just go back to our little mud huts, I guess. I mean, it's all fine and dandy, like cotton candy, if that's what you want. But you see so much of this ignorance, not even any interest, lol, in learning, just going around, why, it's not good, it's not good. Well, your answer is not really an answer, and that's the sad truth. Let's proceed to Mr. Homath, another of these high IQ white males who has much to complain about. And in this case, his issue is his relationships failed because of a lack of money. So when this fellow came on the scene, he was big on the fact that he was an egg sperm on women, and he had a lot of experience, which is why he'd spend this time making silly cartoons. Usually when you see a guy doing that, and obviously this fellow is not Seth MacFarlane, you figure, yeah, he's not doing that well with the opposite gender. There was a dude 10 plus years back, Shite Lieb, illustrator, The Oatmeal, and he did a lot of Bill Maher style takes on society. Yeah, he had a girl, white male, Asian female. Never seen that before. But these guys are not players, okay? So I never believed Homath was particularly successful. And indeed, Rehab Room covered it some months back where he had a meltdown on Twitter and he was like, I'm almost 40, I'll never get a trad wife and kids. You're like, you kind of are hurting your own message because you're saying you're great at women, but you can't get a woman to stay around. You can't get a woman to reproduce with you. Like, how does that work? If you have a gal and she's truly like you're in her head, she's infatuated with you, having a kid is not that difficult. In fact, when they're in their prime, they will be the ones encouraging you to do them unprotected when they're not on birth control because it turns them on. It's, I would argue, usually the guys who are exercising more of the common sense and responsibility. But just here quickly, so he's almost 40. That means he would be 22 around 2007, if my math is right. Not the best time economically, but you have to remember, this is also a period when there's less smartphone penetration, less dating apps, less Instagram, more women who would have been on the old school mindset in the sense of the 80s and 90s I'm talking about. So less aversion to children. He couldn't find a girl in that period. He couldn't go to Eastern Europe or South America and lock one down before all the passport types showed up. And as far as money goes, he complains because he worked for a startup that failed. That's called capitalism. Just like if these high IQ white males, if the Republicans get their way and everyone becomes a 1099, there's no W-2, there's no unions anymore, and they lose their job, they'll be the first ones crybabying on Twitter about how the system screwed them over because they're a high IQ white male. Guaranteed, guaranteed, okay? As far as money goes, yeah, you got 0809 was bad, but if you started just S&P 500 maxing since 2010 or 2011, the Barack the Boomy Obama, the socialist black man, one of the best stock market periods in history. And that's literally just an ETF. We're not talking about Microsoft or Apple stock or Broadcom. We're not talking about Costco. What about Bitcoin? High IQ white man, right? Bitcoin. It's funny how so many of these guys, the high IQ seem to be in the cupboard. It was never being utilized, but now on Twitter, they're the expert on everything. And here we have his mini-me, Bum Badum, who is perhaps one of the most egregious pathological liars on Twitter. This fellow is nonstop drama engagement posting, distorting, pulling stuff out of his ass. And it's peculiar because he identifies as a devout Catholic. I've never understood this with the internet, people that say they're a religious Muslim or Orthodox or Catholic, and yet they can't tell you the truth. They always have to do some form of exaggeration or embellishment. Maybe someone can explain that to me in the comments, how it works. Remember, he was the guy who claimed the only affordable vehicle he could find in Cali was $70,000. Now, he's meant to be a high IQ white male engineer, so unless it's just software, you figure he has some appreciation for how an engine functions. which might mean do car shopping, watch some Scotty Kilmer videos, learn what you should look for and what you shouldn't. Yeah, they go back to cash for clunkers. Like they can always blame Obama for something. Cash for clunkers had an impact, but it's been grossly overstated because many of the vehicles that were being disposed of were not even vehicles these people would want to drive. And I've seen even in my car market, because I usually keep tabs on it, you can still find something that's reasonable. You might have to drive a few hours, but you can find it. It's just that I get the sense these guys on the internet, like Homath, probably came from middle to upper middle class backgrounds where things were relatively, provided to them. Like they want to relive what the boomers had. They don't enjoy all this scrapple type existence, having to struggle. They don't really like that. Even when it's on questions like buying a car is not that difficult if you have some income and you know what to look for. But in his post, he's lamenting the fact that every woman I've met, befriended, dated, or seen on social media has a visceral disgust for children. You're a liar. You're an absolute liar. And this is a classic example of taking women at face value. I just mentioned it previously. If they really like you, you can knock them up. In fact, they will make it easy for you to do so. Even the girls I've met who are more on the liberal side are not completely against kids. Now, as they age, they get more risk averse. It's kind of a reversal, in my opinion. Men who are younger are less likely to want kids. As they get older, they're more inclined. Women start having a far more elaborate list of boxes to be checked as they reach or surpass 30. Nevertheless, do these fellows, I don't want to just say white dudes because it applies to different groups, but how many of them were really chomping at the bit to have a kid at a young age? Like if the boomers had mandated every white male has to be married at 18 and have a kid by 19, no doubt you would have throngs of guys online, the anti-baby and chain movement. Oh, we have no autonomy. Our lives are being ruined. We can't make money. Because if you bother looking at the accounts of people who got chucked out of the house when they were a teenager, had a kid really young, it's seldom rainbows and butterflies. Like usually there's a lot of struggle. There might be separations. But you can still do that. I mean, I know working class guys that might make $15, $16 an hour, and they knocked up some working class white chick. That is still a phenomenon, especially in rural areas. But are these individuals who complain about the liberals and the Carebear psyop, antinatalism, do they really want kids? Is this something they actually want to take on board? And look at his first line. I have GF. She is gorgeous, sweet, kind, and wants kids one day. Oh, wait a second, you have a Catholic girlfriend. Why don't you just knock her up if you want to fight the power? Oh, because, well, we have to get married first. We have to enjoy being married. We have to get a down payment on the house. Yeah, family planning. Exactly what the Care Bears and the liberals you claim are trying to bring down society. You don't really want that. You don't want to be some poor schmuck living in a trailer park with a woman you can barely, stay above water because you have a low income. You want to live a comfortable middle class lifestyle. At the end of the day, all this whinging on the internet is from fellows who it's essentially the grass is greener as a phenomenon. They figure it would all be so much better, but they're not going to go ahead and do it when they have the opportunity because they realize it would be reckless. Like you can criticize the boomers as much as you want for them advising take your time. And certainly with women, we know that they will exaggerate everything. They don't understand how to do moderation. Nonetheless, I would put good money down. Most of these men do not really want kids. They just want they want to grind an axe against the system. Because if you were really obsessed with that, you should have been trying a long time ago. Or in this case, you can try now. But they're still on the same bandwagon. They don't want to struggle. They don't want suffering. They don't want to be on the lower rungs of society economically, but they love to whine, moan, and biatch on the internet.com.